Done it.
Nice. Status updates. I will start since I'm already talking, I guess. Working on getting the GGCR updates into ImageUtil and Lifecycle. I've got an outstanding PR to get to bump ImageUtil now that it has been already bumped. And so once that gets merged, I plan on putting a PR up to cherry pick those commits into the release branch that's already outstanding. So then we can hopefully cut a patch of a lifecycle. And that's it for me.
I put a PR yesterday about the opt-in layer caching. Everyone is more than welcome to review it. I still need to run some manual tests. I wrote to myself what I want to run, and probably I'll grab someone to help me with this because I never write like a build pack and make some changes. So I'll ping one of you to get some help. And thank you, Jesse, for your review. I put something relates to our discussion from yesterday in the agenda today, so we can all discuss it.
I was working on the image util change that's in service of the Windows image cache or Windows cache image fix. Mostly trying to add some acceptance tests just because there's a couple edges I wasn't sure about, and I realized I wanted some tests for that. Trying not to enable all the tests, but just some specific ones. And as an agenda item, I'd have a couple questions for y'all, see how you feel. I know Emily's not here, but I think y'all can answer a bunch of them for me.
I guess I started working this week on some of this behavior around retrying failures when we try and fetch images. So the first thing I've kind of started out doing is trying to reproduce some of these things just by like doing a bunch of base image fetches in parallel, but this is like, it's really hard to replicate these failures. They seem like they happen once every so often, which I guess is pretty annoying in your CI pipelines, but makes it pretty difficult to just like spin something up that'll replicate this. So kind of given that, wondering, we can talk about this later on in the meeting, but just like wondering about how reasonable it is to like write some code that'll cause retries, even though we can't actually create failures very easily. Right. So.
Makes sense. I added something to the agenda just now. Chat about it. Anyone else want to give status updates? If not, we can move on. All right, the next standing item is release planning. I don't think we have any updates to that. I mentioned earlier, try to get a patch out. I'm not like a huge rush for it, but I am trying to kind of at least push that along. So I'll continue doing that. Anyone else have anything to add to release planning? All right, I already looked at needs discussion and RFCs. I clicked into those a moment ago and they're both empty. So I think Micah, you're up first with image util with default platform changes.
Awesome, thanks. And thank you all for the reviews for the image util changes from earlier in the week or last week in some cases. I think I tried to make a bunch of changes based on your suggestions, which are all solid. Some of the behavior I intend to keep as it currently is. And some of those where it's kind of counter to some of the suggestions that Emily had. And I can put the PR in there, although I don't think too much of it is all that controversial. But I was wondering, from all of your perspective, is this was all really in service of fixing a life cycle bug. that Lifecycle was creating cache images in the wrong format. For a Windows app, it was creating Linux images. So technically that's been fixed for a little bit. And the interface changes in ImageUtil just kind of make the calls in Lifecycle a little bit cleaner. And so I'm kind of wondering what's what's the priority of getting that bug fixed and potentially into a release versus getting the ImageUtil changes in there. And if there's some sort of a middle ground that I should pick for that. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts.
Am I right in understanding the bug is really that you can't pull it yourself, but everything actually works, right? Because the cache being in a Linux container isn't a problem as long as you're running on Windows, right? It's still okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There might be a breaking change that we introduced by switching over to Windows images, or by having it author the images as Windows images. But besides that, I don't think there's a ton of compatibility problems related to that. What we'll start doing after the lifecycle changes in there is we'll just set the different OS on all the image configs that we write, and we'll have that Windows shim layer that's in there. So most of the layer contents will actually be identical too, but the images, the image SHAs will change. So my thought was, and if y'all had different opinions, that's totally fine. I might actually try to get the image util change, or at least a piece of the image util change accepted. Bump the image util version in lifecycle, use that for the release, just a bug fix. And then I'll continue adding some acceptance tests for this. Some of these are kind of the quirkier acceptance tests around Analyzer that might be a little harder to get to work for Windows, but I potentially would not try to have that as a goal for the release. Do y'all feel like that would be all right to leave the acceptance test part out of the release?
I don't have a strong opinion here. I think as long as the acceptance test pass for everything that we already have, I don't feel too worried about whatever change you're making here, especially because it's really just in service of cache images and Windows, which is not so heavily used right now. So I feel okay with whatever you want to do there.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll proceed with that and make sure I put it out for discussion in the PR and explain it there. But as long as that feels like a reasonable direction to go, I'll do that. Thanks for the thoughts, and thanks again for the reviews.
Cool. Let's see. Yeah, you're up next. Tom will decode file.
Yeah. So yesterday after I did PR, Jesse gave me some comments and we had like a ping pong like discussion. And I've made some changes last night, but I wanted to talk about some of the things that we've discussed. So first of all, before I've made some changes, I called to toml decode file like a few times in a row in my code, which is pretty ugly. So I totally agree with this. But putting that aside, I was wondering how bad it is. I mean, is it really like, first, do we really care about the performance in this case? And how does it really influence our performance? So it was related both to toml decode file and to checking the API version of our build pack. Again, I totally agree with that. It was pretty ugly to do it over and over again, but just wondering related to performance-wise. If anyone had any thoughts or idea about this, I would love to know. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. I have not measured it, so I have no idea what the toml parsing looks like. Like
Okay.
I have no idea what kind of overhead we might have on that and whether it's worth it, like you said, right? Like I know performance is a thing that we've historically, that's why creator exists, right? Is mostly for performance,
Yes.
gains. And so I know some folks have been sensitive to it in the past, but I don't know how sensitive we need to be on something like that without measuring it. So I don't really have an opinion there.
Okay. The solution for this like problem of checking, like decoding the file over and over, was to decoding the file only once. The problem is that actually maybe I'll share my code. I mean, I put a solution, but I'm not sure if it's the best one. So if anyone has any ideas on something else which I can do, I would love to know. So the thing in this issue is that we are moving 3 flags from the top level of the TOML file into a types table. So for Buildpack API less than 0.6, it will be the top level. For Buildpack API starting from 0.6, it will be inside the types table. So we would like to decode a file, but we also want to either warn or error if the user put the, like the Buildpack author, put the flags in the wrong place. So the solution that I thought about doing this, how to do this, was to create one struct that has like both options. So we have, this is something that is equal for both versions. Then I have the 3 flags at the top level and another like the types table. This is the types table. So I'm decoding the file into this struct, and then I'm checking like whether like is it in the wrong format, like checking for Buildpack API less than 0.6 whether it's inside the types table, and for Buildpack API starting from 0.6 whether it's inside, whether it's in the top level. Sorry. Is there a better way to do this? Like not to create, because I don't really like the creating like one struct with all formats, like looking forward, adding more, like moving things around. I don't know. I'm not sure if this is the right direction to go forward, but
So I think, does this still kind of bring about the topic of performance, right? Like
no. Just, it's both readability and also, I don't know, there is no right. This is right. This is working, but maybe there is a better way to do this.
Right. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, right, what you're trying to aim for is you should know, do you know the Buildpack API version? You do, right?
Yes, I do. I have it here.
Yeah. So couldn't you, in that if block, right? Couldn't you in there decode it to just the specific format that you want for that, that version?
And then use the is defined for checking whether one of the flags exists not in the right place, right? This is the...
Yeah, that's what makes it a little harder.
Yeah.
You have to check for the existence of flags you don't really want in your struct, but you sort of want to see if they're
right.
there.
So that should be in the metadata on the left-hand side,
yes. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you should have that information.
But then I'll have like, again, two, yeah, we'll call one TOML decode file. That's right. I'll have one decode file here and one decode file here. And I'll, instead of, types in the top level, it will just use the metadata that will be returned from the decode file function. Are you following?
I was up until you said it would do it twice.
Because I need, so what was your suggestion? Maybe
No, maybe I'm misunderstanding the problem.
So again, I need to decode based on the Buildpack API, the format will be different, but
Right.
I need to check whether the Buildpack author put the flags in the wrong place.
Right. So you would do the parsing, which is that the code file, right? And it
Mhm.
provides you metadata.
Yeah,
So you only do it once, and then you could validate on the metadata whether there's extra information.
but inside, I mean, to what kind of struct will you?
Two
The
distinct
metadata,
structs, right,
it's
Javier?
I don't think so.
No, the decode file. What struct will it get as the second parameter?
It's the one that you want based on the API version,
So
right?
you
That's what I
will,
was saying. Like based on the API version, you should know which struct you want to,
yes.
it should match,
So I'll
right? So
have,
that's the one that you feed it.
so it means that I'll have one TOML, oh, I'm sorry, TOML decode file here and one TOML decode file here.
I mean, wouldn't it be an else?
Yeah, it's
Right, or
kind of
wouldn't it
else,
be-
that there is a return. Yes, I mean,
Yeah, okay,
we'll-
okay, yeah.
yeah. We'll call only one of them. I'm just, again, what will be prettier for the code? What do you prefer? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what is like.
I could just foresee the all formats being very difficult to comprehend,
Mhm.
especially as we potentially go through different formats in future points in time, right?
Yeah.
If you had a one-to-one of saying like, I have this struct that translates to this Buildpack API, you know, and kind of keep them that way, then that's very easy to reason about. But if you
Okay.
have, I have this like massive thing that might mutate and like you might even get conflicts. So I don't think that that would even work long term, right?
Yeah,
Like you
you're
might have a
right.
key that changes type, right? And like it's not going to work at that point. It gets a lot more complicated.
Okay.
And I mean, there's
Yeah.
also like programming strategies around this, right? Like chain of responsibility, something where you could say, if it's this API version, use this decoder, right? And like, so you could just basically create a list of that sort of stuff. So you don't have to have if else statements, right? But that's optimizations you can make that you can't make if you have like this one massive
Yeah.
struct.
Yeah, I agree. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree too. Yeah, I think multiple structs would be clear, and I think we could leverage, like right now you're kind of doing a mega struct to a struct that we pass out and use everywhere else. Like I think we could do multiple structs and they all adhere to an interface to sort of give us the, so that you don't have to map them, do this mapping from like, you know, your LM FAF to the
Yeah.
layer metadata file. But that's another thing that we would have to kind of think about and thread through, because of course interfaces are, you know, different than
Yeah.
structs. But I do think that we should trend towards getting rid of structs being sort of the interface we code to in most places. But I don't know, that's a long-term thing, but I like multiple structs. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it reads better.
Okay. No, yesterday I just tried to, no, I will call only one TOML decode file. I will put it only once in my code and that's it. So yeah, this is the solution that I came with. But yeah, I told you, I mean, doing this will call the decode file only once. It will just
yeah,
appear
that's really what I
twice.
was after.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, great.
And I guess maybe to further elaborate on Jesse's thinking too, is maybe you don't need an interface, right? You could just have that normalized struct that you pass throughout the code. And the thing responsible for decoding a very specific version, right? It would be the version struct and then the version function that does the decoding. That in itself could then translate it to that normalized version, right? So it would be like very nicely encapsulated. Like this is the logic for translating Buildpack API 03 to Buildpack API 04, which we use throughout the whole code, right? Or this normalized version, whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate? How would you do this in this code?
I wonder if it'd be easier if we like maybe just pair on it or
Okay,
something like
sure.
that. And you know, then once we go through that exercise, kind of bring it back up here and like show people what we came up with.
Sounds great.
Awesome. I love these discussions. Is there anything else you want to talk about there? Yeah.
No, thank you, everyone.
All right. I think the next one was Daniel. Retry registry interactions. Is that?
Yeah, that is me. So I think I linked just the issue that this comes up on. Yeah, I guess there's not, we can read over this, but the real question is like, how much YOLO are we willing to accept? Like, before we make a fix to something, like how reproducible does something have to be like this? Because like there's it's pretty clear where this is happening, and like we could add some code around it to make it retry, but that feels a little weird, right? And it does set like kind of a bad precedent that when other people are like hitting kind of failures in their large CI pipelines that use Pack, that we're just like, okay, we're going to help you by adding additional functionality to Pack that we don't really know fixes an issue, right? So
So I have an option that I don't know if you've looked into, but historically, when it's come to network traffic, whether issues and stuff, one of the things I've used is a debugging proxy, right? The more popular one is called Charles. And so what it lets you do is it lets you do your whole system, proxy your entire system through this application that then you could intercept requests on, and you could essentially drop requests or change their result or response. I don't know if this is more in line with what would help this situation. It's not something that obviously helps through the automation piece, but probably helps through the development phase. And then I would think that for the implementation testing part, if you find the right seam to write unit tests in, that should satisfy, the confidence level there necessary for the implementation. But for reproducibility, I'm hoping something like Charles would enable you to reproduce it at least consistently.
okay, yeah, I've never heard of this. It looks really cool.
There's also Fiddler, which is a little, I don't know if it's more user friendly. I haven't used Charles in a while, but they're very similar. If you use Windows, Fiddler is sort of the de facto one there. If you had something that needed to happen on Windows, but if, yeah, it's cross-platform now, I think too.
Or if you don't need to be too fancy, you can run the code 100 times. It's worked for me in the past. And if it passes 100 times, it's flake is gone.
The likes, you have to get a reproduction rate before the code fix, right? What if without any changes, it passes 100 times? Fixed.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at right now.
You
So,
did it. Just close the issue.
Yeah.
I
That's a
mean,
good
you could go to
question,
your
though.
router and like disconnect the wire real quick.
I've done some stuff with like dropping a certain percentage of packets, and that also is just like not, that doesn't even really work. So
Done it with like scaling up and down the registry while the build's running, just to see how it reacts. And like, it's ridiculous, but it does
I'm sorry.
expose problems.
But did we actually know why the GGCR retry logic didn't succeed in this case? Did anyone find that out?
My recollection is that there's a certain statement that denotes whether an error is something that can be retried, and it's only a subset of status error codes, some of which, or basically this particular, I believe it's like a general network error, does not fall into this temporary retriable logic.
yeah,
Dan, was that your?
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
To be fair, like I definitely think that it would be a disservice to try to get this into GGCR, right? Because I feel like this is a feature that's very specific to a product, right? Like a lot of products might not want to do this, right? We're kind of making the choice to want to do this.
Yeah. Okay. All right, well, thanks for giving me a tool to mess around with this some more.
I'm gonna say is good
Yeah.
luck though, because I mean, anything Docker related with like registries and stuff, it's like a huge network nightmare. So trying to make sure that you find the right seam to inject or interject the proxy, it's gonna maybe not be as easy.
Okay, I guess.
Oh, sorry, I was just gonna throw in one more option too. I made a HTTP to socket proxy in Golang. That this is the first time I'd attempted it, but it makes it a little bit easier to kind of get in there and intercept connections and mess around with them. Gives you kind of a loop where you can maybe switch on some logic that you get in there. I'll send you over the link to that, but Golang does make it kind of easy to get in there and mess with the connections.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about retrying. Like from a pack perspective, I want pack to retry like more often. Like because we have like when we create builders and stuff like that, even like Amazon's ECR stuff is incredibly unreliable at random points. Especially when you do like they're trying to do rate limiting and rate counting and stuff, and that doesn't work well when you have like 50 build packs in a builder. And one of them fails, it feels really bad to have to redo everything. But from the life cycle perspective, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it makes sense to kind of carry that theme through and retry in some cases, because otherwise Pack has to redo all that work too. Like in some cases, I don't know.
This issue, life cycle specific or?
Yeah, it is. And there's not a huge amount of information in the like debug output she gave us, but it looks like what she's doing is she's building something and pushing it to a remote registry that doesn't have any image mirrors. And so you're like streaming down the entire run image, which is massive in this case, for every single one of her builds. And that's really the point of failure, right?
I see. Okay, so this is to do with the images. So in like image util, right? I think we have a very similar issue in pack for build packs. I think that's maybe the issue I had in mind as well.
Interesting.
I
Well,
think
okay.
Jesse put in that one.
Yeah, I put in something.
Yeah, well, I'll poke around and see if there's a common thread between the two of them. But
Yeah, you mentioned run image mirrors and streaming run images. So I haven't used that feature. What's that look like? Do you just like have another registry that's closer to where you're building or something that already has the images pulled? Is that kind of the idea to speed that up?
sorry, is that like what the benefit of using a run image mirror is,
Yeah,
or
I
like-
don't think I've ever actually looked at that feature at all. Like, yeah, kind of what's the use case for that?
Yeah, so I guess it's that when you have like an image built on top of another, like kind of like a from statement in a Docker file, right? If the registry already has that underlying image, it doesn't need to get all of those bits again, right? It already knows what the layers are, what the SHA is.
Yes, I think it's, was it co-location was one thing, and then cross repo blob mounting would be another optimization there, right? So if you're trying to push to GGCR, or sorry, GCR, and GCR already has most of the blobs, it should already allow, or it should not have you upload them. But yeah.
Let's see. Anyone got anything else? We still have 20 minutes or so. Otherwise, we'll get the time back.
I guess I do have a slight announcement. Today will be our first office hours coming up. So potentially different format, right? Where we could have more discussions versus just going through RFCs and stuff like that. So, I welcome everybody. If you have any questions, very similar, but more, generic or whatnot, please jump on those office hours. I'll be facilitating this time.
Cool. I'll probably come idle for the first few minutes as well, in case anyone shows up.
Great.
All right. I'll talk to y'all later.